Okay, let me just start off the video by saying this. Is it possible to get bored or burnt out from playing TF2? Absolutely. And it's perfectly okay to get bored of playing TF2. If you do the exact same thing over and over every single day, eventually you're going to get bored, no matter how fun that thing may be. And it's the same with TF2, especially now because of how many bots there are in casual. I'm not feeling the same push to play TF2 as I used to. That's not like to say that I'm gonna quit TF2 or I'm gonna stop playing. Like, I doubt that's gonna happen. But you know, right now with all the bots, it's definitely taking a toll on my will to play TF2. And I was scrolling through Twitter, actually. Yeah, I know, Twitter, or X as they call it. And I was just looking through TF2 and I saw this tweet from Uncle Dane. And it was, I think this perfectly summed up like why TF2 is it's so hard to get bored of playing TF2. And it's what he said here. He said, "I don't think I will ever be entirely burned out on TF2. It has infinite replayability for me." There was a key word in there, and it was replayability. And I was thinking on that, like, why is it so hard to, or why is it so difficult to actually get bored of playing TF2? And it just goes back to that. It's how replayable it is. And so I was thinking on like other games I've played, and why I get bored of playing them. And I think it comes down to just three main things. And it's the same gameplay loop, the community is toxic, and it just doesn't have, it's like not as addicting, you know? Now, what does it mean by gameplay loop? Well, there is one game that I have played, I've probably the second most hours out of all my Steam games, and it's Apex Legends. I know I'm talking about a different game, but it's a first-person shooter, battle royale, online, multiplayer, all that. And recently, I've installed it just cause I wanted to. And the first game I got into, or the first match I played, I was instantly reminded why I stopped playing it. And it was because it's the exact same thing over and over. It's battle royale, you land, you get weapons, you fight, you die, or you win. It's basically the exact same thing over and over. And people that actually play Apex, like if you don't play Apex, you probably won't understand this, but people that do play Apex, you might say, oh, why don't you just play the other modes like mixtape? Or why don't you just play, you know, why don't you just do ranked? Because that's definitely better. And it's just because it's the exact same, it's just shooting people. And okay, that sounds kind of stupid because you do shoot people in every game, but you know, like why not just play different modes? And it's not, I want to play battle royale, but I want it to be different. Like I want it to be something that's like, it grabs my attention way more. Because if you just hear the words battle royale, what do you think? Oh, you jump into a map with like a 60 or 100 other players and find weapons and loot. That's it. I just described battle royale in one sentence. Whereas with TF2, you got all different game modes. You got payload, you got control points, you got 5CP, capture the flag, you know, you got all these different types of, and that's not even including the community game modes. And you know, there's so many options to play. And with Apex, it's just battle royale. And the second point was community is toxic. Now, I'm definitely not saying that the TF2 community isn't toxic, because it definitely is, or it definitely can be. But at the same time, it's like, it's the best of both worlds. Not the best, but if there was a line, and the line had two ends, and one end was toxic and the other end was super accepting. TF2 probably has the longest line out of any other game. Like you have like either incredibly racist, sexist, toxic people in your game, or you have like some of the most nicest and like the most accepting people in your game. It's one or the other. And I find that a lot of really competitive games just kind of have toxic people, or not toxic, but just like competitive people that just rag on you for being bad. You know, TF2 doesn't really have that. I mean, obviously it does. Obviously there's people that like will insult you for being bad or whatever, but like it's not really it's not really like there that often. Like especially in Overwatch, that like if you do bad on Overwatch and it shows on the scoreboard, you will just get flamed. And compared to TF2 where you can like just bottom the scoreboard and no one really cares because it's a game. Like really, who cares? And now third point, which is it's just not as addicting. And what, you know, that seems, you know, addiction isn't really that good. But in this sense, I'm talking about grabbing your attention and like holding it, and you always have fun no matter what you do. And I think TF2 does a crazy good job. And it's all because, going back to that same tweet that Uncle Dave made, and it is replayability. Just that one word. Just how many times can you do the same thing but in a different way? And it's all thanks to the different loadouts. There are like in one game, no, like I doubt like no one game in TF2 is ever gonna have the same classes, the same loadouts, the same cosmetics. Like there's like thousands of different loadouts that you can make in one game. Like no game is ever gonna be the same. And I think that's kind of why it's so popular and so addicting, is because you can do the same thing over and over and you can never get bored of it, because it's always going to be a different situation. It's always going to be, you're always going to encounter different players, you know? And then the other thing that also adds to it is the loads of maps, because there's, I'm not sure if I remember this right, but I think there's like 100 or so maps, and some of them are obviously are like really bad, but like some of them are actually, like most of them are pretty decent. And because of how many maps there are, like you can get into a game and experience a whole new map for the first time. That's happened to me a couple times where I've played on like a certain selection of maps, and then I've accidentally undone my saved like map selection, and then I've just gone to a random game with a random map that I've never played before, and it was fun. Like, and sometimes, and with games that have maps where you like memorize and there's like a small selection, yeah, that can be good sometimes, but eventually people find the best metas for those maps, or the best heroes or classes or characters for those maps, and then it just becomes boring, like playing the exact same characters on the same maps. It just, you know, it's not as fun. And another thing that adds to the replayability is that you are never ever going to be the best. No matter how good you get, you're like never gonna be the best. Obviously, like you can top the scoreboard and destroy the enemy team if you're good enough, but there's like, you're always gonna be able to die to someone. And it could be like the fresh install free to play. Like, whereas with other games, if you're good enough, or if your team's good enough, you can just wipe the floor with every single team you come across, and it's not even fun. And also another thing that adds to like TF2's longevity is it's actually a pretty balanced game. And I know there's you know, some weapons that are just overpowered and need to be nerfed, which I doubt they ever will be. And obviously those weapons are just objectively better than other, or at least they're just annoying to play against. And they need to be fixed or reworked. But as a whole, TF2 is a pretty balanced game, considering the amount of like different combinations and the amount of different weapons and like team compositions you can have. TF2 is a pretty balanced game, and that's like compared to other games where like balance is always an issue and people are always complaining. Like, it's nice to have a game where, yes, people complain, but it's like not as much. Like, I feel like TF2 kind of went through that era where everyone was complaining about a certain class or loadout or you know, weapon, and then we kind of just stopped complaining because we realized there's no point. You know, Valve's never gonna change it. It's probably never gonna get reworked. So what's the point in complaining about it? Sure, you can vent your frustrations, but you may as well just get over it, you know? And I actually find that pretty refreshing, because people are always complaining about Sniper or VAC medics or Wrangler NGs. People are always complaining about that. But I find it's not as much, where in any other game, you just find people that are just complaining and expecting the devs to fix or change a character because he or she is too OP. And that's why TF2 is just so popular and so much fun to play. It's because you can do whatever you want. You can have different loadouts, use different playstyles, you know, and I think that's why TF2 is just still stayed so popular and still has such a strong community. Like, do I think TF2 will ever die out? Yes, it's gonna happen eventually. Do I think I'm gonna get bored and burn out of playing TF2 at some point? Yeah, it's human nature. If I just woke up every morning, played TF2 for 10 hours straight, and then like went back to bed, obviously I'm gonna get bored or I'm gonna get burnt out. That's why you have to, you know, do other things in your life. You have to, you know, go outside, touch grass. But I think I'm always gonna have a soft spot for TF2. I'm always going to enjoy playing TF2. And it's important to always take breaks, you know, go outside, talk to your family, because, you know, doing the same thing over and over, it isn't healthy. I don't know why this just turned into an episode of Dr. Phil, but you know, just anyway, that's why I think TF2 is probably it's hard to get burnt out and bored of playing TF2.